Okay, so today we're going to talk about mental health and nutrition, and we're going to be talking with a good friend of mine, Karen Jeffrey, and she is a registered psychotherapist. And we're going to get her take on the connection between diet, nutrition, and mental health. And then she's going to give you guys some strategies on how you can curb emotional eating and how you can start changing some ingrained behaviors and habits that you might be experiencing that might be sabotaging your weight loss. So thanks for joining me, Karen.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Okay, so yeah, I guess we'll just start by, I mean, we've talked about it many times, just the two of us, but I just wanted to get your take on the connection between mental health and nutrition, and if that's something that you address with your clients.
Yeah. So it is one of the areas that I address initially on intake with all of my clients. I generally ask, obviously, about their mental health history and just any other like physical issues as well. But I'm also looking at habits of sleeping, exercise, and nutrition. And the reason I ask about this is I do think that it is kind of an easy strategy to pick up on right away, that clients can start making small changes in their lives to feel better pretty quickly. So I'm looking at like what they're eating, when they're eating, why they're eating, and stuff like that. And I'm looking for something that's like problematic. And generally, it's a discussion with the client of whether or not they think it's a problem. And the way I kind of hold eating as a whole is that, um, it's such a we've kind of gotten to a place in society where the most accessible foods to us have so they're the least nutrient dense. And so it's, I want to also caveat that, a lot of people that talk about emotional eating, it's not necessarily a disordered eating, right? So there's a difference between someone who actually has an eating disorder and someone who tends to eat because of their emotions. And
Right.
so it's really just talking about holistically, do you have a coping strategy that was maybe helpful in some ways? It's how you dealt with something. And is it something we can shift? Because now it's like a maladaptive coping strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess, what I see a lot of the time is that people are not, they're not having well-balanced meals. They're not getting the nutrition that they need. And when they don't do that, then they're craving unhealthy, easy to reach for foods. And they think a lot of people feel like that's like a personal defect, or that's just the way they are, when in reality, when they just start to eat properly, when they're getting a solid first meal and a solid second meal and a solid third, then those reaching for these snacks or high sugar, high carb things, it stops almost immediately. I mean, I was working with a client this week, and he changed his diet, and in one day, things that he would normally do, like reach for sugary snacks that they bring out at work every morning, he just said, I just didn't have any desire to eat. I just still felt full from breakfast and I was fine. So like it's both, there are two sides, which is really why I wanted to talk to you, because it's interesting, right? These
Yeah.
coping strategies people have, and then also maybe they don't realize that what they're doing from a nutrition standpoint is fueling that, emotional eating or those habitual patterns of behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like it's important to dive into, is it that they don't actually know anything about food? Like they don't know that all calories are not created equal.
Yeah.
And or is it something deeper? Right. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can be, as you said, maybe an easier fix. Like they don't know that they should eat some protein in the morning, you
Yeah.
know, and or is it that they just have an afternoon slump. And so the immediate thing is like, well, sugar, that's going to make me feel better and give me some energy, but then they
Yeah.
feel like crap later. So
Yeah.
sometimes they just don't know. Or sometimes maybe it's something a bit deeper, like maybe what we're going to dive into. Like, is this the not just a bad habit? Is it a coping strategy because something else is going on?
Yeah, from, things that have happened previously. And I think, um, one really good reason why people who are going through this weight loss journey who have also struggled with, being on diets and losing a lot of weight and then gaining it back and then losing it again and then gaining it back have some element of trauma and,
Yeah.
from that because it's distressing, right? When you're trying to take control of your health, you think you're doing everything right. You do it, you lose the weight, and then you gain it all back. Like I think it's probably a difficult thing for people to go through emotionally.
Yeah.
So, which, I mean, I can help with on a certain level because I'm a nutritionist. I can tell them, when you start eating this way, you're going to feel better. You'll start seeing results, but I think probably for a lot of people, there's still something holding them back because they're afraid that, this is just going to be like every other time they try
Yeah.
to lose weight. They'll lose
Yeah.
it, they'll gain it back. Right.
Yeah. And then it affects like their self-esteem about it.
Yeah.
Like they think I can never be healthy or fit or have, you know, the healthy body image that I really want. And
Mhm.
then that actually creates the cycle even more, right?
Right.
And feeling guilty about
Yeah.
it, which then we're into this bigger cycle of repeating it over and over again.
Yeah, so maybe that's a good question to ask you. So if somebody has, I'm sure there's a lot of guys listening right now who have been through this cycle of yo-yo dieting and, a lot of people I talk to have lost significant amount of weight, like 60 pounds and then, gained it back. What can they do to sort of get over, feeling like maybe they're just meant to be this way, maybe it's just a personal defect and they just don't have enough willpower, they just can't do it. Are there any strategies that you can think of, that could help them sort of move past that?
Yeah. And I think what I'd love to share is like some of the things that I would go through with a client. And you can also share maybe how you approach your clients too when you're working with them kind of from the start.
Yeah.
Like I think probably with eating, just as it is with any anything you want to change in your life, is building awareness,
Yeah.
right? It's when am I eating? Why am I eating? What are my biggest triggers? Where do I fall off, right? Everybody has good intentions, but most of the time I think we're walking around doing things without full awareness.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I think that's the first step. I think something that's important to kind of dig into is what is your relationship to food?
Yeah.
Like how do you think about food? and and sometimes it's even like finding out what's your family's history with food.
Yeah,
If you
sure.
come from a family where food was a reward as a kid, like if you're good and then you get a treat, like of course it gives you good, happy, yummy feelings. So then you're kind of like that's what you reach for as an adult.
Yeah.
And the thing about it, it's funny is food is actually very pleasurable if you think about it, right?
Yes, definitely. Well, you think of
And
even a baby, right? It's like you wanna soothe yourself with
yeah,
food, like, babies cry, you feed them, they feel better. So you're sort of, like, programmed this way from the time you're born, right, to, any kind of discomfort you have, well, food
yeah,
is gonna make you feel better.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So kind of like, I don't know if you ask your clients to track what they're eating, a food journal or anything.
Yeah, usually when they first start working with me, we'll do, I mean, I get a history of their eating habits and their sleeping habits and everything like that. It's very comprehensive. But one thing that I do have people do is make me a 3-day food journal so that I can see very specifically, what their day-to-day food intake looks like. And, you see some people who are, exercising and eating very little and still, there are other underlying issues, but then you see people who are, reaching for usually carbs 8 times a day or, more. And, then you have to sort of start thinking about why, why is this person doing that? Is that, I mean, and you and I both know if you're stressed, if you don't sleep well, if you have anxiety, there's this tendency to reach for those kinds of snacks. So you have to help people to identify, obviously, why they're doing that. And just making small changes sometimes, especially to the nutrition, can really not fix everything. You're still going to have these emotional triggers to eat or to reach for these foods. But if your blood sugar is stable, if you've gotten the nutrition you need, at least you can be present with it, right? And be mindful and say, I feel like having that, but am I really hungry? Whereas
Right.
if you, yeah, which is if you have the emotional stuff plus the physiological stuff going on, it can be very difficult because you've got your biology working against you and then you've got your emotions working against you too. So,
Yeah. Yeah. One
yeah.
thing I always, for clients that want to work in this area, I always say before you snack, before you do anything, it's like, why am I eating?
Yeah.
And then even just that pause. Why am I eating? If you're eating because you're hungry, great. That's what you should eat. Right. But if it's
Yeah.
I'm bored,
Hmm.
I just had a bad meeting with my boss and now my anxiety is through the roof, or I had a
Hmm.
fight with my partner and Sour Patch Kids sound like a great idea right now.
Yeah. Which they do sometimes.
Right?
Right.
Maybe not the whole bag though, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that pause is really important. Why am I eating?
Hmm.
And if it's not because I'm hungry, then the next question I say is there something else I can do to feel different?
Hmm.
And understand that big emotions, the ones that we're trying to fix, generally have a lifespan of anywhere between 5 and 20, 30 minutes. That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like the big emotions, like we're having other emotions all the time, but like the ones that cause like that stress spike or that anxiety spike.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, I know that right now I'm just really feeling stressed because I had a fight with my partner. I am not actually hungry. What else could I do right now to feel better?
And then it'll pass. Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, I didn't know that it was between. Yeah. Okay. So,
right? Like
because
the
I mean,
big
I'm a Yeah, because I mean, I'm guilty of this too, just because you're a nutritionist doesn't mean that you're not gonna have these same things. Like my father-in-law's been in the hospital. It's like there's a lot of stress. And I took like giant bag of chocolate chips that I bought at Costco to do baking for the kids, and I put it in the downstairs deep freezer. Cause I'm like, if it's in the hiding place with the pots and pans, like, you feel that stressful moment in your day. And that's what you do. That's what we all do, I think. Not all of us, but a
Yeah.
lot of us.
You know what? I think everybody can at some point in their life say, I have eaten because of my emotions.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. Because if you're happy, if you're sad,
Yeah,
right? You're celebrating, no matter what it is, right? It's your
yeah,
birthday, you're gonna have cake.
yeah,
You're sad, you're gonna reach for that handful of chocolate chips or the Sour Patch Kids. It's just, yeah.
yeah. So with that, it's finding other strategies that are helpful. So really, it's about trying to change your state. I want to feel different than I feel right now is the
Yeah,
goal. And
yeah,
so could it be, I'm going to go for a walk around the block because that will change your state. It could be simply so like splash your face with some cold water, take a few deep breaths,
mhm,
and then just see how you feel. You're probably going to
yeah,
feel a little bit different. Call a friend, you
yeah,
know, talk to them about it, and then check in. Do I really need this?
mhm,
It's again, it's normal that we crave carbohydrates and fats when we're stressed. It's a primal experience that we all have because our body doesn't know the difference between, the tiger chasing you versus
yeah,
your boss yelling at you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so
So go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, you go.
I was just going to say the one thing that I think is really interesting about kind of the psychology of eating is where guilt gets in the way.
Okay.
So when we feel guilty about eating something, we then create more bad feelings, which may then create more emotional eating. So it's, right? It's like
Right.
I ate because I was anxious, and now I feel guilty because I ate, and I don't want to feel guilty. So I'm going to keep eating to not feel guilty.
Yeah. And then it's a slippery, yeah, that's a slippery slope. And I think so many people that I work with have this such a negative experience with dieting because that's what dieting is, right? It's based on restriction. It's based on, okay, people who have been on keto, yeah, okay, I can't have any carbs, counting every last carb they eat, or people who have restricted their calories, severely, and then you've got to count every last thing you eat. And it is like, I feel like it's almost like like it's disordered eating. I don't know, you would know better, like if there's now a terminology for that. It's not an eating disorder, but it's not right. People just have this very unhealthy relationship with food. And also if they've done this diet and stuck to it and then nothing happens and things don't work, it becomes this extremely negative experience. Like trying to lose weight is, I mean, it doesn't have to be that painful, but obviously people know, you have to put in the work. But so many guys I work with, they just like they put in the work. They're like, okay, that's it. Like I'm doing it. And then they do, strict keto for 6 months or whatever they do. And then things sort of go sideways when they want to try to eat normally again and then gain all this weight back. But then they have this, it's like food becomes the enemy.
Mhm. Yeah.
And one of my clients right now, he did something called metabolic balance, which I hadn't heard of before I worked with him. They take your blood and then they give you this meal plan, this very specific meal plan on, what you can and can't eat. So he couldn't eat bananas, like no, couldn't have different proteins in one meal, could only eat 2 tomatoes a week, like this kind of stuff. So when we started working, it's like, I haven't had a banana for 5 years. Like, I'm going to work with you, but can I eat a banana? If you tell me I can eat bananas, then I'll work with you. It's like, but that's the
Yeah.
problem, right? And it shouldn't have to be like that. Food should be enjoyable. And yeah, you're not going to be able to eat bags of chips and boxes of cookies and drink Coca-Cola all day if you want to really take control of your health and have a healthy diet. But, you also don't have to restrict everything, just normal everyday whole foods. You have to eat them in a particular way, to make sure you're balancing your blood sugar, to make sure you're getting the nutrition that you need. But it like eating shouldn't be stressful, you know?
Right.
It really
Yeah, because
shouldn't.
you're then just creating more environment where you're going to stress eat. Right.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I do think there's also the psychology behind like the forbidden thing, right? So
Yes.
you're at a party and everybody else is having the cookie or the cake and everything, and
Uh,
you've got an experience happening in your body where you're like, I can't have that,
uh,
right? And
I'm
it's in
gonna
your family.
throw the whole thing off, like then I'm gonna ruin it. Like it's all or nothing. Like if I have that cake, it's over. And then people have that cake and then they're like, screw it. Like I just wouldn't have been able to do it anyway. Where you can still have that cake,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Not every second day, while you're trying to get to your goal, but you can still have that cake. I eat cake. I'm sure you eat cake and you maintain a healthy weight. It's completely possible to eat cake and
yeah.
stay on track, right?
And we
So
should eat cake. We should
we,
eat
well,
cake.
you should. It's like a birthday party or or whatever it is. You should be able to eat cake. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I guess that's part of it. It's just it can't really be all or nothing. It has to be a strategy that fits into people's lives that they can use and still enjoy food. And learn, obviously you need to learn how to enjoy whole foods and nutrient dense foods that are going to, fuel your body and also your mind, because like we were talking about before, mental health is, highly dependent on good nutrition. I
mhm.
mean, there's a lot of other factors, but that's one of the basic things you need for overall health. Yeah.
And I would offer like kind of to like offset the guilt. Like we sometimes think if we feel guilty about something, then we're going to change, but
Yeah.
it doesn't actually work that way. What we should be offering instead is compassion for
Yeah.
ourselves in those moments and being like, it's okay to have a cookie. It's
Yeah,
okay. I'm at a party. I'm going to have a cookie and I'm not going to feel bad about it
yeah,
because it's a very different experience when you say I'm human. I'm normal. I'm allowed a cookie. And then I'm
yeah,
going to stick to the rest of my diet the rest of the week and I can feel good about this versus the guilt,
exactly.
as you mentioned before, then you're like, I can't do this. And then the inner critic is coming up and it's saying, see, I told you you'd never get, reach your goals. And then that
Yeah.
creates a different experience.
Yeah, and I think like the program that I do is 12 weeks long, and there are a lot of discussions like this with people because life happens, right?
Mhm.
You have people pass away, you have people in the hospital, you're having a stressful period where maybe you lost your job and you're just waiting to start your new one, whatever it is, you have these stressful times, and a lot of the time when you're having those stressful times, you're not going to have a perfect diet and you're going to fall off a little bit. And I have a lot of discussions with people about it's okay, like today is also a new day, it's a new week, you are human, and I am too. Everybody does this. It's just, it's about getting back on track. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about consistency over the long term, which I'm sure it's very similar in psychotherapy, working on these things. It's about making small changes and staying consistent over time.
Yeah.
Right.
One of my favorite sayings is progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
Are you
Yeah.
progressing towards your goals?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be perfect.
No, no. And it takes time
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
patience. Yeah. And sometimes a psychotherapist or a nutrition coach to help you, keep going, right? Because yeah, I mean, we all have our people too who help us. I have my people who help me on my hard days too, say, you got to just keep going one day at a time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And and kind of to like look at the big picture again, like how it ties in to mental health again is I do think that taking care of your body, especially through the foods you eat and everything, is a form of self care. It's a
yeah, I
form
love
of self love. And it's an easy one to start with. Maybe you have a history of trauma and that's going to take a long time to work through. But what's one thing that you can feel good about? What's one thing that you can feel empowered about? And that is what you put in your body.
it. Yeah,
And you can start to say, look at how I'm loving myself today is choosing healthy meals.
yeah,
And this is how I'm taking care of myself. And that can give people a bit of an upward trend of like, I actually have some say in how my life's going to go. And
yeah.
this is somewhere to start.
Yeah, I think one really hard thing is that, especially when I work with a lot of older men in their 50s and 60s, and when you start developing chronic illness like, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or type 2 diabetes, I think a lot of people think like this is happening, to me when, really it's so important even to make a small change like having some protein at breakfast. You know, you have no control over a lot of things, but you definitely have control over the food you put in your mouth, and you have control over your health, and sometimes it takes, small steps, like maybe just having protein for breakfast every day for a week and then being like, yeah, it is a form of self-care. I'm taking care of myself. I do have control over this. It doesn't have control over me.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
really important. Yeah. For people to understand that yeah, I mean, life is going to happen. Life always happens. But you have to eat every single day. You have to eat multiple times a day, and you have 100% control over what that looks like. And even
Yeah.
if you don't cook, I mean, I have one client right now, he's lost weight in a healthy way and, coped with a lot of mental health issues as well, and made them better through nutrition without turning on a stove. Like he just doesn't cook. So he doesn't cook. He doesn't cook. He hasn't cooked once in 4 months. It's like, but you can still eat whole, healthy foods no matter what your knowledge about nutrition, no matter what your knowledge is in the kitchen, even if maybe you can cook and you just don't want to, you can still take control of your health and have optimal nutrition without yeah, without having to spend hours in the kitchen and also without knowing anything about nutrition, right? It's time. It takes time to learn these things, and sometimes you need somebody to tell you what to do at the beginning, and then the learning comes later, which I'm sure happens with your clients too. You know, you need someone to say, you know, you don't need to know everything, but you need to take these small steps to get to where you want to go. And then the self-awareness comes later, or the education comes later, or the knowledge about nutrition comes later. But just to have somebody to help you say, you know, this is where you need to start. Yeah.
And I think it's really great what you are doing to support your clients, and it's similar to what I do in that, like, we all need someone in our corner to be
Yeah.
our cheerleader, coach, therapist, and we all need to be accountable. And so it's kind of honoring, like, we don't have to do this alone. We
Yeah.
can have somebody who's going to be with us while we're struggling, someone who's going to help us with setbacks, and someone who's going to cheer us on when we're winning.
Yeah.
And it's reaching out when you need support, and you're not going to be shamed for having a bad eating day, or not being as consistent as you like, and you're human. And you're here to you know we're here to support that
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, I think that's the biggest thing I hear men say to me is, you know, I need the accountability. Like that's the most important thing. You know, yes, I need nutrition knowledge. Yes, I need help learning what I need to eat and when, but mostly it's I need the accountability. So yeah,
We all
yeah.
do. We all
We
do.
all
And
do.
it's
Yeah.
not weakness if you
No.
need.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, this month is June's, you know, Men's Health Month, and you know, there's always a lot of talk too about, you know, men's mental health and the fact that you know so many men don't go to the doctor and you know don't take care, or they're afraid to, or they don't want to reach out and ask for help. And I think it's important for men to understand that it isn't a sign of weakness. It's just, you know, it's everybody needs help to get to where they're going, and that's it.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
excited that you're doing this work with the men. And I think men at this day and age need a lot more support with, you know, like, understanding their emotions better,
Mhm.
being able to express them, being okay having them.
Yeah.
We're obviously doing a lot better than we did, but I do think a particular struggle with a lot of men that I work with is they don't always know what they're feeling. They
Yeah.
don't always know what to do with their feelings. They don't always have people to talk to. And so food might be just a way that they deal with it.
Yeah.
And so offering them other strategies, to work through their emotions, to allow themselves to feel their emotions instead of eating them
Yeah.
is and so I think it's really important work, to be targeting men especially, so that they
Yeah.
can, progress for themselves.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we'll just do a quick recap on the emotional eating strategies, like just like a, you know, more of like a just point by point,
Yeah.
just in case people sort of got lost in our rambling
Yeah.
our
No,
discussion.
sure.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, awareness, right? Kind of like you do the food tracking journal. It's just, I just ask my clients, just let me know, like, when you're eating, what you're eating, and why you're eating. Next, once we're aware of maybe some of the pitfalls, again, in the moment, having a pause. Why am I eating? If the answer is not because I'm hungry, then the next question is what could I do instead to feel different? And again, that can be taking a walk, uh, splashing your face with some cold water, calling a friend, doing some exercise, just something that will help you change your state so that you feel different. So you kind of run that emotion out. And then the other thing is I think the big key is to not feel guilty when you eat something, because the guilt just creates the bigger cycle of more emotional eating. So remember, if you choose to eat the cookie, enjoy the cookie. taste it, enjoy it, savor it, and move on. You don't
Yeah,
have to feel bad because the guilt actually just creates more of the same.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that will allow you to have a better relationship with food, which is the ultimate goal, is to have a healthy relationship with food that doesn't, that's not about restriction or cutting out entire food groups or never being able to enjoy the cookie,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Or labeling food as either good or bad.
Good or bad,
Food
yeah.
is food. And
Yeah,
obviously some of it is not as healthy, but it doesn't mean, if you have a cookie every once in a while that, it's going to affect you in the long run.
yeah. The world's not gonna come crashing down.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, consistency over time, right? 90% of the time you eat well, eat healthy foods, and then that other, 5 or 10% of the time you should be able to have the cookie or go out for beer and wings or whatever it is, that you want to do. So, yeah, I was going to say guilty pleasure, then I'm like, no, that's not the
Oh,
right.
we're moving away from guilt.
I know. I was just gonna say it. I stopped myself. It's true though. It's just like the societal norm, like just the way we label things. It's
Yeah.
just the labeling. It's not helpful.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then you're looking at something that you've labeled like, the ice cream is a guilty pleasure. Immediately you feel different about eating it.
exactly. Yeah. Whereas it's just, sometimes you're just gonna have the ice cream and you're going to savor it and enjoy it and then move on. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, I think we covered everything. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for um, sharing your expertise with everybody in my group. I'm sure they'll all appreciate it. And
My pleasure.
yeah, okay. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.